National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over.
Blunt words from the U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who also says that Iran is toast and America is winning the war. Hello, glad you can join us. Tehran and other Iranian cities are still under bombardment from the U.S. and Israel. Iran and its Lebanese proxy are retaliating, targeting Israel, targeting Arab nations with U.S. bases and diplomatic missions, and now targeting NATO member Turkey. Several U.S. embassies are closed, with both Americans and Canadians being urged to find a way out of the region. We have CTV correspondents covering this story from all angles. Joy Malbon in Washington, Annie Bergeron-Oliver in Ottawa, Heather Wright in Toronto. But we begin with CTV's Adrian Gobriel, who joins us from Istanbul. Okay, Adrian, how is Turkey reacting to being targeted?
Sandy, here in Istanbul, many are on high alert tonight. For the first time since this war began, a NATO member nation has been targeted by Iran. Turkish National Defense confirming that a NATO defense system shot down an Iranian ballistic missile as it traveled into Turkish airspace over the Mediterranean. Pulled from the waters along the southern coast of Turkey, this is the remains of a NATO interceptor missile that knocked an Iranian attack out of the sky. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan saying his country is in close consultation with NATO allies while warning Iran a similar incident cannot occur again. In Iran, thunderous explosions echoed across the besieged nation as Israeli forces confirm they've begun a 10th wave of strikes, with U.S. forces hitting deeper into the country. In the 5 days since this war broke out, more than 1,000 people have been killed in Iran, according to a U.S.-based human rights organization. In Lebanon, smoldering debris sends smoke billowing into the sky in Beirut, where the IDF has vowed to uproot Iranian-backed Hezbollah after it launched strikes into Israel.
The numbers are increasing. We have more than 80,000 people, including 24,000 children, forcibly displaced in Lebanon. Many were still displaced since the previous escalation.
This video shared by the U.S. Department of Defense showing the moment a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship. The bodies of some 80 sailors reported dead at sea, located by rescuers along the southern coast of Sri Lanka. With 3 other NATO nations, Greece, Britain, and France, sending naval and Air Force personnel to Cyprus following Iranian drone attacks there, this expanding conflict has reached new shores. More than 100,000 Canadian citizens and permanent residents in the Middle East have registered with Global Affairs Canada. CTV News visited the Canadian consulate in Istanbul to try and ask questions on behalf of Canadians stuck in the midst of this conflict. Passport in hand, security inside this building refused to allow us to enter the consulate. Our request to interview Canada's ambassador to Turkey was also denied.
This is Adrian Gobriel with CTV National News.
One official speaking on background tells CTV News that a range of options are being looked at to help evacuate Canadians by land and air, while assisting those in Iran remains the most difficult, without an embassy inside that country. With war on the horizon, a sunset call to prayer preaches peace in a region and a world where tonight it's in very short supply.
The attempted missile strike here in Turkey makes this the 11th country targeted by Iran since this war began. Sandy.
All right, Adrian in Istanbul. Thank you, Adrian. This morning, the American Secretary of War also said that the U.S. and Israel will soon have control of the skies over Iran. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon listened to Pete Hegseth's briefing. And Joy, it sounds like this mission is far from over.
Sandy, the Secretary of War was pretty blunt and said the U.S. military campaign against Iran is just getting started.
With the sinking of an Iranian naval ship in the Indian Ocean, the U.S. military says it has hit more than 20 Iranian ships and 2,000 targets. The Secretary of War couldn't help but boast.
The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. They are toast, and they know it.
Pete Hegseth declared America is winning, and Iran can't outlast the U.S. With more warplanes arriving in the region, the Pentagon claims it will completely control Iranian airspace soon, warning of an even bigger wave of attacks to come.
We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces.
The conflict was supposed to last just a few days, but President Donald Trump says it could be a month or longer. The White House insists this isn't about regime change, so why attack now?
47 years they've been killing our people and killing people from all over the world, and I think we have great support, and I think if we didn't do it first, they would have done it to Israel and give us a shot if that was possible.
With the war widening, involving multiple countries now, it's not quite a MAGA mutiny, but some key Trump supporters are raising some serious questions.
It's pretty clear that we're not going to gain anything more. And how do we know that? Because no one has explained what we're there to gain.
In the meantime, both the House and Senate will hold votes this week. Some lawmakers want to limit President Trump's war powers, but it's not expected to go anywhere. Sandy?
All right, Joy, thank you. Now, the Americans are working on plans to get their people out of the region. Global Affairs Canada says it is not currently offering assisted flights. So you can imagine the struggle to leave with airspace restricted, many flights canceled, and airports not operating at full capacity. We saw the efforts to get out of Turkey in Adrian's report. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver now on the options for other stranded Canadians desperate to come home. Annie.
Sandy, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, France, and Germany have all either announced or begun chartering planes to bring stranded citizens back home. But so far, that's not something Canada is doing.
For the last 6 weeks, Glenn Williams traveled the world. He thought his layover in Kuwait, a country he had never visited, would only be for a few days. Then the conflict began, and instead of flying home Sunday, he found himself stranded.
We do hear the sirens a lot during the day, but I mean, it's overall fairly calm. I can't say it's been crazy. I think the biggest part is just like the unknown. We're not sure when the airspace will reopen.
Williams is one of more than 103,000 Canadians currently registered in the region. Global Affairs Canada is not currently offering assisted departures, but the department says it is working on a range of options to support the potential departure of Canadians from several countries in the Middle East.
I am on the phone night and day with my counterparts in the region to ensure that we are providing the utmost support for Canadians in need.
While no evacuation flights are currently planned, Ottawa says it has asked Oman to use their airspace if necessary. Israel has arranged buses to a border crossing with Egypt where commercial planes are still flying. And in Lebanon, seats have been secured for Canadians on certain commercial flights.
Publicly, we may not say much, but behind the scenes, I think there is some conversation going on about potential exit avenues.
With experts saying it will likely be some time before flights resume.
It would be nice to get back home.
Canadians like Williams are trying to stay patient while they wait for news from the airlines or from the government.
Seems like the Canadian government, not in any bad way, but has said, kind of fend for yourselves and hunker down.
But it's not just Canadian travelers in the Middle East who are impacted. It's Canadians around the world who had layovers in the region canceled indefinitely. Sandy?
All right, Annie. Thank you, Annie, in Ottawa. The war on Iran is causing market volatility around the world, and now Canadian drivers are feeling it at the pumps, with the average price of gas up nearly 9 cents from the week before. CTV's Heather Wright breaks down the pain region by region. And Heather, have we seen the worst of it?
Well, Sandy, analysts say likely no, with prices expected to rise even further in the coming days.
Sticker shock at the pump with prices soaring across the country overnight.
It'll hit everything, like you said, and I expect inflation at 3.5% by the end of the year.
According to GasBuddy.com, drivers in BC and P.E.I. are paying the most, an average of 161.9 cents a litre in BC and 154.2 cents a litre in P.E.I. Quebec is seeing prices around 152 cents per litre, while Ontario is averaging 136.6 a litre. The lowest prices are in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta.
The longer this conflict goes, the greater the likelihood the price will reach levels that are extraordinarily uncomfortable for most Canadians.
20% of all oil traded passes through the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf, which Iran controls. Tanker traffic has been disrupted while energy facilities have been attacked. In addition to rising gas prices, the price of diesel has also climbed, which will have a knock-on effect on basically every aspect of the economy.
Without diesel, you don't run your economy, your military, your agriculture, your mining, your forestry. Yes, your transportation, and that doesn't just stop at trucks. It also goes into aviation.
And despite being an energy-rich nation, experts say Canadians are unlikely to see any relief at the pumps, as efforts to scale up oil and gas production cannot be done overnight. It's something that doesn't sit well with Luka Mahalik.
The problem is they should have done something 10 years ago, not today. Today, what can you do?
There are concerns the conflict in the Middle East will have an impact similar to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine 4 years ago, when the price of a barrel of oil shot up 20%. There is more oil at play in this conflict, but analysts say it all depends on how long the war lasts. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Heather Wright on energy prices. Let's bring in CTV's chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang, to talk about all of this in the context of the financial markets. And Amanda, it really is a roller coaster ride. Is this volatility here to stay?
Sandy, volatility is probably the best word you can use for these markets. You know, today markets took a turn for the better, not really based on anything we can see. There was some good U.S. jobs data. There were some rumors in the market about a potential negotiation beginning to the end of this conflict, not substantiated. But of course, at times of uncertainty like this, you don't need much to move markets. And one thing that's interesting to note is we have seen investors willing to buy into the dips in this past week. So there are those who do want to push the markets back up higher, who are believers at this price level, in other words. In times like this, when there's this much volatility, for most people, it makes good sense not to get overly invested in the day-to-day trading. The question would be, what am I supposed to do? If you have investments, it's a good time for a gut check on whether what you own is right for you, how does it feel right now, and whether you can afford a big downturn if one were to come along. It's a good reminder of how you're positioned. But for most people, it is better on times of fast-moving data like this and day-to-day changes to just look away and not actually get overly involved in what's happening, because this volatility is likely to be here for a while.
All right. Amanda, thanks so much. Good information. Well, Mark Carney, now in Australia, rather, on a trade mission, has said that he backs the strikes in Iran with regret. And then, in a candid fireside chat today, also offered some candid insight into his conversations with Donald Trump and China's president. And he later used some rather salty language, as CTV's Abigail Beeman reports.
You don't want to say anything in public that you can't back up.
At a fireside chat at a top Australian think tank, Prime Minister Mark Carney pulled back the curtain on dealing with world leaders, starting with Donald Trump.
It's quite different in private. It's much more, he is more interested in your viewpoint on various things.
While he said Chinese President Xi Jinping spent 10 minutes in his first meeting discussing how he wanted personal interactions to go.
I interpret it, don't lecture me in public, bring issues to me directly.
And when he said central bankers have more fun than prime ministers, illustrated by a story about mixing a time-crunched decision with top European wines, Carney used the F word.
You know, tick, tick, tick. And he's like, well, have this one, but, you know, the Pinot Grigio. And I'm like, and then he finishes it, and he says, okay, listen, we have an hour.
Earlier in the day, Carney held a series of meetings and announced a deal to further investments by pension funds in both Australia and Canada. Australia has had trouble entering Canada's market.
I think we've struggled to find the opportunities. As they look to private capital, we really want to be at the front of the queue.
It's no longer what or why, it's how. And that's what the Prime Minister is fixing here, is the how to make sure that they can invest more in Canada.
And that's music to the ears of this recently retired Canadian couple on holiday in Australia.
So I would love to see more diversification with equal-minded, similar-minded folks like the Australians. That's just a no-brainer.
Canada's Prime Minister will next address Australia's Parliament and meet with their cabinet and Prime Minister.
Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Sydney.
The Crown has rested its case in the sexual assault trial against billionaire Frank Stronach.
About the trial so far?
I felt great.
Today, a friend of an accuser testified after the final complainant finished her testimony, and now the defense will have its turn to call witnesses. The 93-year-old billionaire has pleaded not guilty to 12 charges. The Port of Churchill has signed a major agreement with one of the biggest cargo shipping facilities in the world to collaborate on an updated design for the harbor. It will join forces with the Belgian port of Antwerp-Bruges on business development and trade plans. The northern Manitoba site is working towards a multi-billion-dollar expansion as one of the projects Ottawa has declared to be in the national interest. Now, 3 P.E.I. doctors are leaving their practices and leaving thousands without a family doctor in a province with one of the most strained primary care systems in the country. CTV's Maria Saru takes a look at what's behind the problem.
Dr. Heather Austin loves her work as a family physician, but in the past year, she says it's become too challenging to practice in PEI, partly because of how the health authority is treating doctors.
It comes down to the relationship and the lack of respect that we have been shown. I think they need to listen to us.
The island signed a new physician services agreement in 2024, but its rollout faced pushback over proposed patient targets, with some doctors saying their concerns were dismissed. Late last year, parties reached a deal. The framework offers 2 models for doctors who provide ongoing care. One sets a minimum of 1,600 patients, another a minimum of 1,300, close to the national average. Doctors who fall short are expected to grow their roster, and financial incentives are tied to panel sizes over 1,600.
I can't work any harder than I've been working. An incentive to ask me to do more is a disincentive.
Austin has nearly 1,400 patients who will need to find a new doctor when she moves to Nova Scotia in a couple years. Dr. David Antle says on paper the targets are reasonable and important, but every practice is different.
Someone might have a very older panel of patients that require more time. Some might have a heavier mental health case burden.
In a news release, a Health PEI spokesperson said in February alone, the agency held more than 60 individual meetings and several town halls to listen to physician perspectives. This month, it plans to create an advisory panel to do more of that work. Austin isn't the only doctor stepping back. 2 others have told Health PEI in recent weeks they'll be closing their practices. That means new names added to the province's waitlist for a provider, which already has more than 33,000 people on it. Maria Saru, CTV News, Summerside, Prince Edward Island.
Still ahead, an expression of discontent. Why thousands of Nova Scotians are on the streets protesting. A massive rally in downtown Halifax as thousands gathered to show their displeasure following massive cuts to arts and culture programs, cuts that will affect thousands of jobs across the province and shutter a dozen museums. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth was there.
On the streets. A jam-packed downtown core in Halifax. Thousands of protesters marching on the legislature with a unified message.
We're not accepting this.
The Nova Scotia government is cutting $130 million in funding that supports arts and culture programs. 12 museums across the province are closing. Opposition leaders say the province's cultural fabric is being defunded, and they want Premier Tim Houston to face these protesters and clarify the rationale behind the cuts.
I think he's going to have to explain the answer to that question because there is no reason.
It's definitely not the place to start looking for cost savings, and it's very small cost savings compared to the big deficit.
A deficit that has reached $1.2 billion. According to Premier Houston, that's why he put these programs on the chopping block.
This is to protect healthcare, to protect education.
Not a good enough reason, says this protester.
We need to be investing in culture and arts. It's the thing that makes our community grow.
Amazing power. These protesters say the cuts will directly impact 22,000 jobs in Nova Scotia, supported by arts programs. The province also canceled the Publishers Assistance Program, supporting first-time authors.
I would like to have a local book published one day, but you know, it's looking bleak.
Protester Cindy Stone is not giving up the fight. She hopes her voice is heard and the province reverses the cuts to arts and culture programs in Nova Scotia. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Someone in the city of Toronto has won a $75 million jackpot, and players are being urged to check their tickets. The Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation says the winning Lotto Max ticket for yesterday's draw was sold somewhere in the city. As of this morning, the winner had yet to claim the prize. After the break, from Wayne to Shrek, an honor for the comic actor who brought classic characters to life. Mike Myers is one of Canada's best-known exports, celebrated around the world for his comedy. Well, now he's set to receive a big honor at the Canadian Screen Awards on May 31st.
Actually, my name is Austin Powers.
It says here, name Danger Powers.
No. Danger's my middle name.
Austin Powers, one of the many iconic characters Mike Myers has brought to life. He will receive the Academy Icon Award for being one of the most multifaceted performers of his generation.
Stack of freshly made waffles in the middle of the forest. Don't you find that a wee bit suspicious?
And it's easy to see why, with roles like Shrek or the legendary Wayne Campbell from Wayne's World. Recently, Mike Myers returned to Saturday Night Live Roots to play Elon Musk. Now, the comedy actor hasn't been shying away from the political, especially after the U.S. president threatened to make Canada the 51st state, appearing in an ad with Mark Carney.
What are the two seasons in Toronto? Winter and construction. Wow. You really are Canadian. Yeah.
The Icon Award is presented to an individual who has made an exceptional contribution to the media industry at home or abroad. That is it for us this Wednesday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Bye for now. We hope to see you here again tomorrow. Take care. Be well.